great fun, son. Nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Hello and welcome everyone, this is Taco Movie Talks, here to talk about war movies. I haven't seen nearly enough war movies, and I've been watching a boatload of them, and I'm here to give you some recommendations. I'm going to stick away from some films that I think I've covered a lot on other videos. Two of those examples would be Spartacus and Paths of Glory. Two great Kubrick movies covered in my Kubrick video ranking all of his films, but you're going to want to check those out if you do like war films. And as you can probably tell from the inclusion of Spartacus, or I guess the not including Spartacus, that this is historical war too. And we're going to start out with one of the greats, Gladiator 2000, Ridley Scott. Are you not entertained? It's such a cool premise that I think made the entire thought of gladiators badass and cool in the minds of young men like myself, especially when I first saw this, but even now. I mean, I saw this less than a year ago. Super quotable, great Ridley Scott film. I give it a 4 out of 5. I might give ratings for all of these, we'll see. Next, Jarhead 2005. This was one of my favorite war films for the longest time. The film really captures a mind state, which I find to be indicative of a great film in any genre, but definitely include war films in that as well. Superb cast, and it'll forever be one of the first films that comes to mind when I think about war films. One of Gyllenhaal's best performances, no doubt. Probably not his best. I do think Nightcrawler might have that. I also think Prisoners was a good performance, but Jarhead is definitely up there. Next, we have The Hidden Fortress, Kurosawa, which you watch my stuff, you'll know I'm a huge fan of him. But it's Hidden Fortress 1958. This was a major influence on Star Wars, the original, like, very first Star Wars film, which is pretty crazy to think about. And like I said, I love Kurosawa, and I think I love his historically set films the most. His contemporary films, like when they were filmed, obviously, modern, were really, really good, and I think he has some greats as far as that goes. High and Low, Ikaru, but I really enjoy his historically set films, and The Hidden Fortress is one of those that I really, really like. It includes my favorite actor from Kurosawa's acting troupe, Toshiro Mifune, and I just find that to be a recipe for success, and the film does not disappoint. Next, we have 1917, which came out in 2019. This film is brimming with adrenaline and has some absolutely gnarly set pieces. Definitely check that out, especially if you lean more towards newer films. 1917, and another film that's going to be coming up, you definitely got to watch. Next, we have Joint Security Area, another 2000 film coming in. Great central mystery that explores the mindsets of those from North and South Korea. I think the chemistry amongst the central characters made this film truly special. Definitely go check that out. Coming up after that, we got Tropic Thunder 2008. This is a great combo of genres because the action can pick up the slack if the comedy ever drops. In this case, the comedy never does. One of my favorite and most quotable comedies of all time. Next, we got Ingmar Bergman coming in with a film that runs like a nightmare where your deepest insecurities come to surface, and that is Shame 1968. This is like, man, if you've seen Bergman, you know how freaking crazy and off the wall his ideas for stories can be, and Shame is definitely up there with some of his best works. Next, we have Fury, one that I just watched very recently. I could see this really turning off people for how masculine and aggressive it goes for. But for those of you who like that type of war film, you're really going to like this. And I did myself. There was some pieces that I was less than satisfied with, especially one of the final sequences. I let a lot of the negatives go because the positives shined brighter for me personally. I think Fury's great. Definitely go check that out. Next, we got The Cranes Are Flying. It's a Russian war film, and Russian war films are bleak, even if they aren't necessarily trying to be. I think that's probably a consequence of their national identity and the great losses they've felt, especially in World War II. It's deeply touching, this film, and well worth exploring if you've never seen a Russian war film. Another film I'm not going to really talk about, it's Ivan's Childhood. Watch my Tarkovsky ranked video if you want to see more about that, but it's a great film. Next, we have Threads, 1984. Are you scared of nuclear fallout? No? I have just the film for you. It plays like a documentary and goes into detail about how fucking bad that would be. Next, we got American Sniper. This is where the delineation between great and very good starts, which, you know, it's all shades of gray, but I got American Sniper. I think this is a kick-ass story, and I thought Bradley Cooper really killed it in his role. Next, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, 2022. So this is a more recent one for those of you who lean towards more recent picks. If you haven't seen it, you definitely should. My dad loved this film. I thought it was really good. I honestly think if I were to watch this in German, actually, with subtitles as opposed to dubbing, I would like it more, but I think some people might prefer the dubbing. It's definitely not done poorly. It's just everything in this film works to put you in the actual time period, and it does so really, really well. So just to have dubbing that feels slightly off, it takes you out of all the hard work they did. Next, I have Lone Survivor. This is an insane true story. And if you hear the interviews with Marcus Luttrell, I mean, he sounds like an awesome guy. And this is like one of the craziest survival stories with military personnel. You grow really attached to the characters throughout, and it makes everything just like really emotionally jarring and very powerful. Up next, I think this is a film a lot of people could try to easily dunk on, but like I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy 300. It really is the style that separates this film from the pack. Not only was the story of the Spartans like all people could talk about in the lead up to this film, but there are some spectacularly badass scenes in this film. Up next, we got Troy, 2004. Great performance by Brad Pitt, and this is obviously like a story that's stood the test of time, so the story holds up really well too. Next, we have The Dirty Dozen, 1967. Super solid film with a packed cast. I was very close to putting this into the great territory, much like All Quiet on the Western Front. There was a little hang up I had. Some of the death scenes at the end, which is the most climactic part of the film, were just really lackluster and kind of bumped it down a little bit, but it's still a very good film and you should check it out. Next, we have The King. Robert Pattinson's performance is really entertaining in this. My one mild complaint would be, it is hard to believe Timothée Chalamet as a physical threat on the battlefield, but that's such a small portion of this film, I didn't dock it really at all for that, but it's a super interesting story, and I think you would very much like it. Next, we have another 2022 film, and it is Top Gun Maverick. Let's face it, Tom Cruise is the man. This has sick sequences and a lot of heart. If you at all like the original Top Gun, I think you'll like Maverick even more. This just feels like a really well refined film. Very good, very solid. Next, we have Hacksaw Ridge 2016. I didn't think I would like this, but the battle scenes really won me over. Mel Gibson really went for it on the battlefield. I mean, it does feel kind of enhanced, so to speak, or played up, dramatized, whatever word you want to use to describe it, but it makes the film, in my opinion. Next, we have Wojciech 1979, super unconventional, but is a unique and super interesting story for me. It is the pinnacle of Werner Herzog as a director. And when I say pinnacle, I don't mean it's his top work, but it embodies Werner Herzog to a T. Our third to final pick is Across the Pacific. It's a really solid plot with a terrific performance from Humphrey Bogart. And that's all the way back from 1942. The next film is maybe controversial to some, especially based on the ratings you'll see on Letterboxd or anywhere else. And this is the first time I've really talked about it on a video, but it's Napoleon 2023. This is the newest movie on the list. Definitely works against itself in certain instances. It seems like kind of the coverage of his personal life and what he's doing on the battlefield, they almost seem to be working in separate directions. And I actually saw this in a review that someone said on Letterboxd, but I was like, I think they really nailed why this film feels the way it does. It's because it does feel conflicted. But in my viewing, the good portions outweighed the bad portions. And you can actually, the funny thing, and it's also noted in this Letterboxd review, is that you can appreciate what each side was trying to do. So like there's not many bad memories where it's like, wow, this scene really didn't work. That's what makes it strange. But when you watch it all together, it does feel like you're getting pulled in two separate directions, I guess, mood or thematically, or just how it was, what message it's trying to get across. All said, I still feel it's worthwhile. I can see if you want to wait and hold off and see it on streaming, I would endorse that idea, but I really enjoyed it. I still thought it was very good. And that leads us with our last recommendation, and that is Battleship Potemkin. And I always read it in my head as Pokemon, and I didn't realize I didn't know how to pronounce it until I just tried to say it now. But this is all the way back from 1925. It's definitely not for everyone. It's a silent film. It's in black and white. It's foreign. What else is on your checklist that I need to hit for you to just be absolutely terrified of this film? But it has some sequences that still hold up nearly 100 years later, and I think for that very reason, it's worth checking out. And I'm glad you checked out this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Let me know some of your recommendations. You're probably wondering, you started at great, you went to very good. That's because I have a list ranking my tippy top war films coming out soon, and I really want you to subscribe so that you can see that film. You watched this whole video, you liked it, you hit the button for like, you hit the button for subscribe, you commented some recommendations of your own, and you're gonna want to stay posted for that video coming up. I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining me, and I will catch you on the flippity flip. Bye, y'all.